We're answering some of your questions about COVID-19 with Dr. Adam London from the Kent County Health Department. And we've been hearing a lot about how there's going to be an uptick this fall, possibly with COVID-19 numbers. Are you expecting that that might happen?
I think it's very likely. What we see with other respiratory viruses of this type, related viruses, is that they do tend to increase in incidence as the cooler months arrive. And that's both because of the drier air and also just the reality that we tend to congregate indoors more as the weather cools. We also are doing things like school and things that bring us in closer proximity than during the summertime. So I think that fall does become a bit more favorable to virus transmission than summertime is.
And how are we doing with testing in our area? And are you concerned at all about how long we're going to continue this?
Yeah, so actually I think our area is really leading the state in testing accessibility. And I think, here in Kent County, we're doing about the same number of tests as the three larger counties in Southeast Michigan are doing every day, despite the fact we have about half the population of those counties. So I think testing accessibility is tremendous here in Kent County. I think that we're probably going to be seeing the same level of testing until a vaccine is readily available. And then we're going to turn our testing infrastructure into vaccine infrastructure. So our drive-through sites, our mobile unit, things like this, we're going to transition from testing into vaccination.
And so recently, we learned that Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford had a false positive. So we had several tests that were negative. He had a positive, and then he had a negative to back it up. Are we seeing a lot of false positives?
Not a lot. There have been studies that show that less than 1% of tests come back as a false positive. So it is a fairly low rate. It does happen, and it's unfortunate that it happened to Matt Stafford. And I think that the stigma that's involved, I know that his wife posted information about how people were viewing them differently. And I think we need to be really careful about that we don't bring stigma into the equation. People who do have COVID-19, it doesn't mean that everyone in their family has COVID-19 or that we need to treat them differently. So we need to be very careful that we test effectively, that we're using the best technology available, and then also that we don't look at people and their families with that sort of exclusionary stigma.
I know that there's an additional test that has come out, and it's just the nasal swab as opposed to the really big Q-tip that goes in the back. And that's usually people with minor symptoms that are getting just the nasal swab. Is that test just as effective as for testing COVID?
It is. And we're seeing new testing technologies coming out all the time, which is a huge benefit for us. We're even seeing spit technologies, saliva technologies, and technologies where people can do the test collection themselves. And so that reduces the amount of PPE and staffing that we need to use to do testing.
And it's hard to believe it's time to talk about this already, but flu season is going to be here shortly. How important is getting that flu vaccine this year?
It's never been more important, Val. I think this year what we need to be very careful about is that we don't overwhelm our hospitals. And flu, even in a good year, puts a tremendous burden on our hospitals because of the respiratory distress that some people have as a response to influenza. So this year, while the flu vaccine is not going to protect you from COVID-19, it can reduce the incidence of influenza in the community and help to protect our hospitals and our healthcare workers.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. London, for taking some time to answer our questions. If you've got questions that you would like answered, you can text us at 616-559-1310.